All right, let's get into it. Today, we're putting on our detective hats to tackle a really fascinating and complex medical case, dermatomyositis. And our investigation all starts with one simple but pretty unsettling question.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if your body's own defense force, the very system designed to protect you, suddenly got its wires crossed, and instead of fighting off germs, it turned inward and just started attacking your own cells? Well, that's the central mystery of an autoimmune disease.
And the specific case we're cracking today is dermatomyositis, or DM for short. At its core, it's a relentless attack on the tiny blood vessels in your skin and muscles. And we've even identified the main driver of this attack. It's a molecule called type 1 interferon. You can think of it like a biological alarm system that's just stuck in the on position, screaming at the immune system to attack, attack, attack. Now, like any good detective story, the investigation starts with the most obvious clues. And for MDM, these clues pop up right on the skin. Doctors are trained to look for these really specific telltale signs. A purplish violet-colored rash on the eyelids, sometimes called a heliotrope rash, and these reddish, raised bumps over the knuckles, which are called Gautron's papules. You might also see rashes in a pattern that looks just like a shawl or a V-neck shirt. For years, that was pretty much all doctors had to go on. But here's the thing. These skin clues, they only told you what was happening, not why it was happening or what was coming next. The real game changer, the big breakthrough, came from a discovery made not on the skin, but in the blood. They found microscopic fingerprints left behind by the immune system itself. And these fingerprints have a name: myositis-specific autoantibodies, or MSAs. You can literally think of them as unique signatures that the immune system leaves at the scene of the crime. And finding these, well, that was like finding a key that could unlock a dozen different versions of the same mystery. And this right here is where the case just cracks wide open. Because what these antibodies revealed is that dermatomyositis isn't just one disease. Not at all. The specific fingerprint you find in the blood tells a completely different story. So, for instance, if you find the anti-TIF1 gamma antibody, that is a massive red flag for cancer. But if you find the anti-MDA5 antibody, that points to a totally different danger, a really serious threat to the lungs, even if the patient feels perfectly strong. It's a whole different ballgame, all depending on which fingerprint you find. So, you see, the point here is huge. Identifying the antibody isn't just about giving the disease a name, it's about predicting the future. It lets doctors see past the rash and anticipate the specific, hidden dangers that are lurking under the surface for that individual patient. We're talking about a hidden cancer or a looming threat to their lungs. And believe me, the stakes are incredibly high. For an adult with DM, the risk of getting cancer is 2 to 3 times higher than for someone in the general population. And this risk is super time sensitive. The cancer is most likely to show up in the 3-year window right around when they get diagnosed. This is exactly why immediate and really thorough cancer screening is an absolutely critical part of managing this disease. But as we saw, cancer isn't the only bad guy hiding in the shadows. For patients with that anti-MDA5 antibody, the main threat completely shifts over to the lungs. They can face this devastating complication where their lungs can get scarred up and fail with just terrifying speed. And what's even crazier is that the disease seems to wear a totally different mask depending on how old the patient is. In kids, cancer is incredibly rare. Instead, they often get these hard calcium deposits under their skin called calcinosis. But in adults, it's the total opposite. Cancer is a huge risk, and lung disease is way more common. Okay, but here's where our story takes a hopeful turn. Because we can now identify this specific culprit, that specific antibody, we're no longer fighting this disease in the dark. We now have a modern, targeted toolkit that's designed to fight the very specific enemy we're facing. This knowledge has given us a clear, modern battle plan. Yeah, it starts with the clue you can see, the rash, but it immediately dives deeper by testing for that antibody fingerprint. And that fingerprint then dictates every single next step, screening for organ damage, checking for specific cancer risks, and it all leads to the final, most important step, starting a therapy that's targeted to that patient's exact profile. And the toolkit we have now is pretty impressive. We've got our first-line defenses, of course, but beyond that, we have targeted weapons. For the skin and muscle issues, there's IVIG, which got the FDA's stamp of approval after a huge trial. For that really dangerous lung disease linked to anti-MDA5, doctors now use powerful drugs like JAK inhibitors to calm that storm. It's just not a one-size-fits-all approach anymore. This is precision medicine, plain and simple.
So, what's next? Where do we go from here? Well, the future is all about being even more precise. Instead of just managing the damage, new therapies are being designed to go straight to the source and shut down the signal that starts the whole attack in the first place.
And this isn't science fiction. We're already seeing it happen. Remember that type I interferon we talked about at the very beginning? That alarm stuck in the on position? There's now a drug being developed specifically to block it, and the early results look really, really promising. It suggests we are on the verge of being able to turn off the disease right at its root.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what started as this single, mysterious illness that was only defined by a rash has been completely transformed. Through some truly brilliant detective work, we now understand it's a whole spectrum of different conditions, and each one has its own clues, its own risks, and its own targeted treatment plan. This isn't just a story about a disease, it's a story of incredible medical progress. And that really just leaves us with one final thought. As science gets better and better at decoding our own biology, at finding these unique biological fingerprints, it just makes you wonder, how many other diseases that seem like unsolvable mysteries today will become clearly understood, manageable conditions tomorrow?